So this is a really good example of wearing a hat the wrong way. There you go. This is a really good example of scouting location and knowing a location is there and then waiting for the right conditions. So I'm in between Oldham and Huddersfield, and it's very picturesque, but it's very, very bleak. And there are these trees that I've seen for years and years and years, and then I've got a sneaky suspicion that somebody put a picture of these trees on Instagram. I asked them where they were, and I thought it was over in the other valley, and it might be. But I keep driving past these, and I've always thought to myself, in the right conditions, they'd make a nice shot. And today we've got the right conditions, because what we've got is we've got snow, we've got hoarfrost, and we've got fog. And to get fog in this location isn't that common. And just up the way along this road there's a viewing point called Nonsera's, and that is a very popular place to shoot images. Now, we had a beautiful, beautiful sunset today, and sunrise even. It's only 8:45. I'm getting my times mixed up. Yeah, we had a beautiful sunrise, and as I was driving out of Huddersfield, I was thinking to myself, look at that sunrise behind me. And I was driving along and thinking, if I can capture that at that Nonsera's point, I will do. But unfortunately, as I drove to within about a mile of the Nonsera's viewing point, the fog came down, and it was a flip up. Am I going to wait there to see if the fog clears and we get something, or am I going to come here? But experience told me that it wasn't going to clear, and I think I was right, because I'm here now. It's a good half an hour after sunrise and the fog's still here. So what we've got is we've got the tufts, and I don't know what people call these tufts, but they're the ones that can break your ankle if you're going out fell running. But they've got a beautiful subtle hoarfrost on them, and I want to keep that element sharp in the shot, and I want to get enough of the trees in the shot to make a nice central element to the shot. Then I'm not concerned so much about the background, but I don't want the background to be completely empty. Now, I could shoot that as a minimalist shot and just say foreground, an area of interest with nothing in the back. But I think it's nice to have a little bit of elements in the background to some degree. So we've just got a tree or two on the right hand side or the left hand side, depending on which composition I decide I prefer when I get home. One of the things that you'll find when you come and shoot anything like this is a shot will look really good in your camera. I'm going to take one now, and then I can show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to put it on the tripod because I want to show you this. Can you see the horizon is going down? So it's higher at the, on the left hand side and lower on the right hand side. It just messes with my head. So this image that I've taken here, I've tried to make sure that the horizon is relatively level because it just doesn't look right. Not when you're taking an area of interest, central area of interest shot. It can just mess with your head a little bit at subconscious level, and it'll do that for the people who are looking at it and who are visualising it. Your focal length will determine how sharp everything is front to back, as will your aperture setting. Okay, so if we're shooting at f6.1 to f8, roughly everything is going to be sharp when I'm on a tripod that's almost as tall as me, so I'm 6 foot. If you're concerned that your 4 foot foreground element isn't going to be too sharp enough for you, you can always focus that, but I don't really want to, because I'm shooting at 24mm. It's going to be pretty impossible not to make sure that everything is sharp unless I go down and shoot wide open. And once you've got your camera in your hand, you can move around your composition, and I would encourage you, when you're shooting with a focal length which is classed as wide angle, 24mm wide angle, it's not ultra wide angle, but it's wide angle, but also consider getting the camera down low and lower in your scene. Where I grew up shooting is the Peak District. Peak District, you've not got a lot of background magnificence in the Peak District, unless you talk about places like Chrome Hill and stuff like that, and Mamtor. But they're still not magnificent, and so when you look at the people's shots in those locations, they're really bringing in the foreground element into the image, and the background element fades away. So I'm used to going down low, but I've not been going down low in the woods. Is this the video for innuendo? You know what I mean, don't you? Yeah, I've not been taking the camera low down in the woods. I've been shooting at roughly my head height, or even higher. But in a location like this, when we've got those areas of interest such as that marram grass, which isn't marram grass, it's tufts. Somebody will tell me what it's called. I do know, you know. I do know, and I can't think. But yeah, down low. Down low. So getting serious for a millisecond, just be careful if you're hunting out possible compositions and looking at whether lower or higher is going to work, that you don't tread all over your scene. Alright, because there's nothing worse than wanting a virgin foreground and you've tramped all over it even. Either or, doesn't really matter. You'll get away with the first one, but you won't get away with the second, so don't tramp all over it. And another thing is, if you're shooting something like this, just be aware of how the trees are working as a unit. So it's very easy to shoot the trees and think they look good, but try and separate them as much as you possibly can. You'll see in my image that the tree on the right hand side is overlapping ever so slightly the tree on the left hand side. I'm not too concerned about that. The main area of the trees, so the tree trunks themselves, are well separated. It's a few branches that are just overlapping. That's not a problem. But where is a problem is, I'm going to shoot this and then I'll show you. I'm back. So where that I've taken a shot there, you can see it now. That's a problem, because what's happening is that there's two trees on that right hand side there that are moulding into one. Now if I'm in woodland and shooting and that's happening and I can't avoid it, I'm not that concerned, because in woodland you've got so much area of interest that people aren't going to go, well, you're overlapping on that tree. It's not going to worry people. But on a shot like this, where I've got 4 trees that are my main area of interest, and the one's overlapping the other, it starts to look messy, because even though we mentioned that I've got a couple of elements in the background, this is a relatively minimalist type of shot, so people are going to be drawn to those 4 trees, and if you're drawn to the 4 trees and one's overlapping the other, they're going to go, oh, that's nice, but why didn't you stand 2 feet to the left? And so I could see all the trees. Look at your foreground element of interest, look at your main area of interest, which is the most important thing, because that's where people's eyes are going to go. But what they'll do is they'll go into the image, they'll look at it, and then they'll look and they'll go, oh, the background's lovely and soft, and there's a little tree there on the left, there's a little tree there on the right, and then they'll come back and they'll look at the foreground and they'll go, oh, isn't that pretty? And so the whole thing, from a subliminal point of view, makes the image for somebody who's a layman. And what we mean by that is not photographers. Photographers, some people will go in and zoom up really high and look in the corners and go, well, oh, you've got a 24 to 70 and it's soft in the corners and it gives you vignetting. But it don't matter. Don't matter. That's the thing. It don't. To the majority of people, it doesn't. I mean, to people who it's their passion, they may look and pixel peep. I don't. Somebody says that I rant. I don't rant. I'm just passionate. I'm passionate. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what irks me a little bit is when people tell you what you must do. You've got to make sure it's sharp front to back. No, you don't. Don't have to do anything. I have to make sure I get my children to school in the morning, otherwise I get into trouble. But I don't have to make sure it's sharp front to back. That might be appealing, but you don't have to do anything. It's your photograph, and it's you that's taking the shot. And the great thing is when you know the rules, the rule of thirds, Fibonacci, depth of field, ISO, you can then break those rules if you wish, because that's where your artistic element comes into it. That's where you go, right, I know that if I shoot this f16, it's all going to be sharp front to back. But what I want is I want that main element of interest to be sharp, and then I want everything soft. And I want my foreground soft, because I want to just take everybody's eye to that main area of interest. Now, if you're a film shooter, you had no choice. You had no choice. Either you put it up, if you're medium format, you put it up to f16, f22, or 35mm, similar aperture settings, and you would have to put up with a bit of softness in the foreground, perhaps, or not shoot the foreground element and just shoot something with not so much of an interesting foreground. Nowadays, we can focus stack, and the focus stacking can make sure everything's sharp front to back, but that's relatively new, isn't it? Like HDR, relatively new. Like Luminar, relatively new. I ain't got a problem with anybody doing any of that. I've got a problem with people saying don't. Has anybody bought that Luminar yet? I must admit that when we were doing the Photo Nerds, which unfortunately at the moment with everything that's going on is on hiatus, and maybe a permanent hiatus, a lot of people keep asking me, so I'm going to say that. But I downloaded the free trial to see what all the shenanigans and fuss was about, and what I found is that some elements of it were awesome. The artificial intelligence and everything was very, very clever, but what it did, it took some of the artistic control away from me. It's a bit like, for me, it was a bit like shooting JPEG. The software was doing what it wanted to do rather than what I interpreted the scene as. But if you're a beginner, it's not cheap. It's about 100 odd quid. But if you're a beginner and you want to try it out, I ain't got a problem with it. It's not for me, but I'm not going to lambast anybody that uses it, to be honest. It's very clever, you know. You put a sky in, change the sky over, then it lights the subject. But I will warn you, for somebody who's seasoned at taking photographs, not necessarily me, it's a bit like HDR. You know it's been luminar'd. That's why I call it. It's been luminar'd. Nothing wrong with it. And then people say, well, I ain't got a problem with it as long as you tell people that you're using it. I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to say on the bottom of your image, I use Luminar, and this was a flat image, and I used artificial intelligence. I think it's obvious. And you know, I don't say on my images I've used Gaussian blur, or I've split toned this, or I've used -10 on my clarity. That's Paul Johnson's intelligence, not artificial intelligence, to get that artistic element to it. But it's like your phone shots. You pull out your iPhone doobry and take a shot. It's a huge amount of artificial intelligence in this thing. A lot more intelligent than me. and it's doing a lot of the work for you. But people take phone shots, put them up on. They don't say, the artificial intelligence took this shot. They go, I took a shot with my phone. And phones are as good as DSLRs. They're as good as DSLRs because of the artificial intelligence. You use a sensor that size, take a picture with none of that artificial intelligence, it's going to be panned. It's true. So composed here, the left hand side is messy and the right hand side is messy because I haven't got at 24mm those trees in the background in the shot. They're cut off, so I'm going to move back. What else is there to say? Because there is something, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, because we're shooting in fog, if you've got a histogram, it really don't matter, because all you're doing with your histogram is you're making sure that you're not clipping out on the right hand side, but I wanted to take the histogram as far to the right hand side as I possibly can. If you're shooting and you haven't got a histogram, 1.5 to 2 stops overexposed, because don't forget your camera likes to put everything in mid-grey, and it'll put your snow in mid-grey. Easily pull back in post, to be honest, so don't panic too much, but just bear it in mind. So histogram all the way to the right, it's going to be relatively high key, or 1.5 to 2 stops overexposed on your exposure meter. It's simple. So I hope you enjoyed that little chat. As I say, I'm not trying to tell you anything. I'm just trying to possibly give you some ideas and some little bit of information so you don't make the same mistakes that I've made in the past, because I suppose that's what it's all about. So if you like the video, click a like, because that helps the channel apparently, but it's not my main concern. My main concern is if you like the video and you get a chance, or even if you've got something to say, as long as it's not nasty, because nasty you just get deleted, because I don't need it, nobody does. But I love the interaction, comments wise, so make a comment and then I'll answer. I always try and answer you, because I personally feel, obviously I make the videos, it's only polite if you make a comment for me to answer it. I've always said that. Now, the funny thing is I looked on YouTube, and when the difficulties were going on with my dad, there were a lot of people commented and said, you know what, really sorry for your loss and all that, and I didn't answer them, and I apologise for that. It's and there's a lot of people that may have thought, well, that was a bit rude. It wasn't rude. It was, yeah, I've gone and had a look, and there's quite a few people that commented, so it was appreciated. But going back to more light-hearted stuff, I will comment back, say thanks, and I read all of them, and they mean a lot. So thanks. I'm going to go home for a cup of tea. And he's like, if you're from England, there was a character called Bod in the 1970s, and there was a frog on it, and halfway through the television programme he'd decide what he was going to have for a milkshake, and he'd go, I'm going to have strawberry. So I'm going to have, I don't know, might have a cup of tea and a bacon butty, or a sausage sandwich, because it's not effective enough. Have a great time and peace.